All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Hammer and Chisel Performance Podcast. I'm your host, John Heck. Before we dive into this conversation, just want to give a quick shout out to the sponsors of the podcast, Troponin Supplements. They got me outfitted with the logo tee, bodybuilding jersey, letting me look jacked on the camera here, although most of you are just listening and can't even see it, so it's irrelevant, but take my word for it. And then, of course, this podcast is fueled by their best product, ATP. It's a high dose of caffeine and a powerful nootropic. It's like the limitless pill for me. Just expands my mind, lets me have great conversation with a guest like I have on today. So getting into the episode, man, I got a treat for you guys on the podcast today. We have one of the strongest humans of all time, period. I think it's safe to say the strongest powerlifter of all time for sure. I've got quite a few strongman competitors in my audience, so I don't want to stir up any controversy saying the strongest human on earth, which he might be. But anyway, Jesus Olivares, welcome to the podcast, man.
I appreciate you, John, for having me on, man.
Yeah, well, so I'll be straight up with you. Other than just seeing your lifts over the years and just being blown away by your strength and the things you've done, I don't know much about you, right? I don't know your story. I don't know your background. I don't know how you train. And I'm very curious to learn and to get into that in this episode and let my audience get in on that as well, because I'm intrigued by people like you, people who are just at the top of what they do, especially you in powerlifting. I mean, my first love was powerlifting, strength sports. I'm a huge fan of strength sports, and I compete in them, or used to compete in them myself. I coach strength athletes. So to be able to talk to the guy who's at the top, man, it's an opportunity for me to learn and pick your brain, see what goes into creating the champions like yourself, and take my audience along for the ride. So, man, if you don't mind, could you just give us just kind of the quick bio of yourself?
Yeah, man, of course. So, just to keep it short, so the first time I ever touched a barbell, I was in it was junior high, man. So I was 12 years old. So I'll turn 27 this June. So this year is my 15th year that I've been lifting weights. So been lifting weights for over half of my life. I grew up in Texas, Odessa, Texas. You might have heard of the Permian Panthers. They made the movie Friday Night Lights with Coach Gaines and all them in that crew. And I think they had a pretty crazy run back in the day. So that was kind of my background. Like I've been powerlifting now for about 6 years, but my background originated out of athletics, right? So it was a lot of plyometrics. It was a lot of speed-based training, a lot of power-based training. So from the age of 12 to about, I didn't start strictly strength training until I was maybe 20 years old. So that's when I dropped out of college, and that's when I kind of decided that team sports, like the college sports life, wasn't really for me. So from the age of 12 until 20, so that's 8 years, right? Through this time period, if we go through it step by step, that age gap is probably the most important in any person's developmental stage, because your body's going through puberty. So it's you have this influx of testosterone just flooding your body, and then your bones are just adapting to that training, to those movements, your ligaments. As your body is developing and maturing, and you're exposing the young kid to this kind of training, it just kind of tends to surface some of these adaptations, right? So I think for me, man, I think I just was very fortunate and very blessed that I kind of have that base, so my coaches taught me how to train hard. They taught me the fundamentals, right? Even to this day, man, I can hear my O-line coach teaching me how to squat. He's like, hips back, knees out. And that's how I squat to this day, man. When people are like, man, what do you do to have such great hip mobility? I'm like, dude, when I was in junior high, they literally would put those steel dumbbells underneath our cheeks, man. And if we didn't touch every single dumbbell, like that rep didn't count.
So yes.
That's how I learned how to squat. So yeah, I mean, I know a lot of little things at once. So just to kind of streamline it is like started lifting at 12. My main sports were football, track and field. I actually threw Division I at UTSA for a year, and then I had a freak accident where I landed on my right foot, needed surgery. The way that head coach ran his operation is if you couldn't perform at in conference, he would cut your scholarship. So then my throwing coach was like, "Hey, dude, like I gotta tell you some bad news. Since you're not able to compete at conference for your surgery, you know, Coach Fox is gonna cut your scholarship. Like you're not gonna." So at that point, I'm like, man, like I was banking on that scholarship money. Like, my family doesn't really come from much. My grandparents migrated here about 60 years ago, so like my family's what I've done, that means a lot to my family. But so that was my freshman year of college, so I'm like 18 years old, and then I transferred back to this Division II university in Odessa called UTBB, and a lot of my buddies were because I mean like I had like another growth spurt after high school. So in high school I was like 5'10", 260. And it's like if your coaches don't teach you the recruiting process and you kind of have to figure stuff out on your own, man, and like you have to reach out to coaches and you have to send out your film.
Yeah.
And if you're not like a freak, if you don't have like the potential to play D1, it's kind of hard coming out of high school as a 5'10" guard, right?
Right.
So I had a few D2 offers coming out of high school, but UTB was recruiting me heavily. So when they heard I was transferring back, even though I was in a cast or a scooter, I should say, they were like, "Hey man, like we just want you around the team. We want your morale and your leadership around the guys. Like even if you you don't practice till spring ball, like we just want you around the team." So at this time, I'm like, it feels kind of good to be wanted, right? So,
Yeah.
and I still had aspirations to play in college. So then I do that, right? And then I get healthy. I start rehabbing. I start doing spring ball. It's going pretty good. Like, because I hadn't put on pads at this point for maybe like 2 years, right? Because at this time, this is my sophomore year in college, and I did like a whole year throwing, and essentially it took like another 10 months to rehab my foot. So it had been almost like 2 years, and like after a few weeks of getting back into it, like I was already getting put into like the second team and then getting a few snaps at with the starters. And then like 2 weeks before the spring game, I had like another incident where essentially having like a bad dream when in my sleep I essentially like sit up and then slam my head on the headboard, give myself a concussion, and I call my coach and I'm like, "Hey coach, I just kind of hit my head pretty hard right now, and I don't really feel comfortable driving to practice because this is like 4 in the morning, and I live like 30, 40 minutes from the field, from school." And the first thing he says is, "Oh, I knew you were gonna pull some shit like this. I knew you were gonna give up on your team." And I'm like, "Coach, what are you saying? Like I'm telling you, like I just hit my head and my vision's blurry and I don't feel safe driving it pitch dark. I live 40 minutes out of town." And he was like, "I don't give a shit, man. Like, just do whatever you gotta do. Like, go see the trainers when you can." And he hung up on me, and that just like shattered whatever image I had of team sports. Because like in high school, we went from a pretty bad season to having a really good team on the basis of we over me, right? And that's what a team sport's about. The best teams always have the best chemistry. And that just like shattered that entire ideology. and I was going through a bad breakup. I had just like lost my passion for like team sports, and I was like recovering from a concussion. So it was just like a whirlwind, man, because the year before I had that injury from track, and then here I am again, like with another incident. Um, so, and this is gonna leeway into how I get to powerlifting, right? So, at this time, I kind of put on some weight, and I'm in a really bad spot. So, I feel like this is the most generic gym bro thing, and like I feel like it's a canon event for young men at many stages at many stages of life, right? Go through a bad breakup, and you get nowhere to go. Jack, you go to the gym, man, and you get jacked. So that was kind of my thing. I was like, huh. I mean, I needed to find an outlet to pour all of this negativity in, just so I could feel okay at home, because I had a lot of bad thoughts going on in my head. And then so I do that, like I think I lose like 30 pounds over like a few months. I start going to the gym consistently again. Excuse me. And then at this time, my brother Pablo, he was watching a lot of strongman and powerlifting at the time, because I didn't know there was powerlifting outside of high school. Like I didn't know they had like powerlifting for adults. And then I think at this time, this was whenever Eddie didn't pull 500 until 2017. So I started getting enamored by these strength sports, right? And I kind of start watching the same channels and same lifters that Pablo was watching, like Martins Lisis, Russell Orhe, Eddie Hall, like Brian Shaw. So, like, honestly, a lot of the guys that inspired me were really more like the strongman guys. Probably like those were the guys. Like, I even watched a little bit of Robert Oberst. Um, but and honestly, I feel like what steered me towards powerlifting is there just wasn't the implements I needed to train strongman seriously. And I've always understood that to be the best at what you want to do, you need to have accessibility to those implements.
Right.
Right. Like there wasn't a gym within an hour of where I lived that had like stones, yoke, or any of that. But for powerlifting, you could train that anywhere. You could literally any commercial gym that has a bench, a squat rack, a bar and plates, you can squat, bench, deadlift in. So I remember in 2019, I made a New Year's resolution of I'm going to compete in either a strongman competition or a powerlifting competition before the year ends. But due to the lack of accessibility to any strongman equipment, I just kind of started steering towards powerlifting more. And I started looking at some of the records for people in my age group, and I started kind of like getting more attached to it, like just being able to visualize myself actually break some of these records, right? I think that's a really big one, is being able to visualize yourself succeeding in what you want to do. And then
Right. At this point in time, did you have any inkling that you had a gift for strength? Like, as you're kind of just discovering powerlifting, did, did you already have a pretty good base of strength?
yeah, I've known. So at this point in time specifically, I remember I knew in the back of my head that I responded really well to strength training,
Mm-hmm.
because um I remember when I was in 7th grade, I added over 100 pounds on my bench in like 12 weeks when I was 12 years old. I think I went from benching 105 to 215 in our off season. Uh, and then pretty much like every year I could essentially add a plate, but the only time I would lift a weight was during the off season. Because coming from a pretty, I don't want to say ignorant in a bad way, because ignorance is just like the lack of knowledge, right? It's the lack of wisdom. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but I came from a very ignorant Hispanic Mexican household that didn't really believe in lifting weights year round. So the only time I ever got to lift the weight was during football, during like our period at school, right?
Right.
So from I didn't start lifting year round until high school when I started playing on varsity, right? Because like it's mandatory, man. You got spring training, summer training, off season, and boom, that's your 12-month year right there.
Yeah.
But I remember distinctly that when I was 12, I also managed to work up to like a 315 squat. And then when I was 14, in that same 12-week span, I managed to squat 405. And then when I was 15, I managed to hit 495. And then I think after my sophomore year, my O-line coach essentially was like, hey, man, like, I'm capping you out at 545, like, just to keep you safe. We're not going to load any more than that. So every time we would PR, I'd hit that cap. So I never really got to push my 1 rep max in high school because my coach would be like, hey, man, like, keeping you safe, like, we're just capping you. But I understood the premise of like, hey, man, I got strong really fast. So I kind of took that and it gave me a little bit of faith in myself that if I could just kind of stay healthy and find a decent enough program, that I was going to get strong off of it. So even these are my numbers before I started working with my coach because I was coaching myself for about 8 months because I picked him up in, I think, either September or October, and our first competition was in December. But before I started working with him, and this was just like watching, like I remember distinctly one of the things that I took specifically from Martine's channel was there was a point in his preparation where he would do as many sets of 3 within a 20-minute span of a top set. And I would write that down and I would go to the gym like the next week and be like, okay, I'm gonna do as many sets of 3 with 545 as I can. And I remember like once I would do like 4 sets within 20 minutes, right? Trying to just see how it would work and my body would react to it. But before I started working with Joey, I think I managed to work up to like a 725 squat on a super whippy bar, man.
And this is like at a commercial gym, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Commercial gym 725. I think sleeveless. I might have had like a really thin bodybuilding belt, like those super thin leather ones.
Yeah.
A 475 touch and go bench and a 765 deadlift. So like I have, like obviously when my coach saw my numbers, he's gonna make room, right? Like I don't think any coach in the right mind would see a young man who essentially like trained himself to these numbers, like, you know what, let's make room for you, big guy.
Yeah. I mean, how old were you at the time? You're what, 19, 20 years old?
I was 20. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you find that 20-year-old kid who's putting up numbers like that with just, I mean, coaching himself, I mean, that's, you found yourself a phenom right there. You jump at an opportunity to work with a kid like that. So, and this was Joey Flex, correct?
Yeah. Joseph Franzo.
Yeah.
But
So
how did you not
how did
Joey Flex?
Yeah, he's I mean, I've followed him for years. I mean, just his I think his results speak for themselves just as far as the lifters that he's coached. You at the top of that list. How did he initially discover you or you discover him?
I discovered him, right? So, because Russell, yeah, well, because I call Russell, but everybody else calls him Russell. Um, Russell would shout Joey out every now and then on his videos because like
Yep.
they were training vlogs, right? So if Joey has something to say, like some criticism, he would talk about it on his channel, and I was like, huh, like that must be his coach. So I looked Joey up. I watched a lot of his YouTube channels. I mean, a lot of his videos. I think that day I watched like 5 or 7 of his videos. I looked through what athletes he had coached. I think so. At this time, this was 2019. He had already taken, I think, Amanda Lawrence to her first or second world title. Russ had just won his first worlds, but it was his second appearance. Jonathan Keiko had just won his first nationals. And I mean, the list goes on, right? So at this point, I recognize him as someone who has been where I wanted to go, and I wanted to get to the world level. So in my mind, I was like made up. It was like I did like a little bit of research. I had seen that he had been to the world level. I'd seen that he had been successful at the world level, and I was like, I was sold. In my mind, he was the only coach that I wanted to work with. Which I mean, in hindsight, if I was as experienced then as I am now, I probably would have done more research, looked into like the other coaches available at the time, looked at other resumes. But man, like back then, everything that I did was like faith based essentially. It was just like a gut feeling.
Yeah.
Like this conviction would just grip me and it would have to be that or nothing. So I reached out to Joey. He got back to me pretty quickly and he was like, "Hey man, like I'm gonna be at nationals like in the next week or two. You know, like I'm gonna I'm gonna reach back to you after nationals if you're still like willing to work." But he was like, "I'm gonna make room for you. So if you're ready to go, by the time I hit you back, like, you know, like I look forward to working with you." So then nationals happens. Um the team does really well. And he gets back to me and we start working together, right? And I think like our very first conversation, I remember I was at this Italian restaurant back home, and it might have been one of my family members' birthday. I don't remember because we would only go to this place if it was like a special occasion. Excuse me. And I just remember messaging him back and forth, like just being excited, man. I was like this 20-year-old kid. I felt like I had like reignited like a passion of sorts. Like I'm gonna start competing again, like something to look forward to, especially after like being an athlete for so long. It's like, you know, like it just feels good being able to find something else to channel that competitiveness into. But that first conversation we had, like he literally told me, like, "Hey man, if we can stay healthy and we work together long enough, like I can see you like breaking Ray's records." And he told me that like the very first conversation we had. And for me, because I know especially like a lot of kids, you know, they get so impatient, they don't understand that to really plant a seed and see it grow into fruition, it takes time. You can't rush the process. Yes, some people are blessed and they have abilities that could, from your perspective, make it look like they're progressing at an accelerated rate. But everything great takes time. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day. Um, but for me, from my mindset, it like I remember I'm like I'm gonna add 100 pounds to my total every year. So I was like, even if it took me 7 years from that point, that's where we're gonna be. And that was like my mindset from the beginning was I'm gonna do this as long as I need to get to that point. And then we do our first meet in December, and I was one lift away from totaling 2,000 pounds in my first meet. So
Yeah. And real quick, I just want my audience to, I want the audience to be very aware of this. You know, I've had a lot of strong powerlifters on here on the podcast, and Jesus is competing drug free in the IPF, which is the hardest conditions to compete in powerlifting in. So drug free, number one, right? And then just the strictest form of judging you're going to have. You're walking out your squats. You know, you're not pulling your deadlift on a deadlift bar. You're pulling your deadlift on a stiff bar. And he has still managed to hit the numbers that he's hit under these incredibly difficult conditions. So I just want to make sure the audience is aware of all these things. So anyway, so you totaled just shy of 2K in your first powerlifting meet, which you're probably
and honestly, John, I'm glad you pointed it out because that's exactly why I went USAPO IPF was because I wanted anything I did to be done the right way. I wanted my performances to be under the highest scrutiny. So because I remember I was looking like I think like USPA and like the IPF affiliate, and I was like, okay, like which federation do I go into? Like they both have an international federation that lets you compete at their worlds. But after doing a little bit more research, I was like, okay, like the IPF is definitely stricter. It is a lot more challenging and it's a lot more competitive. So like that was like why I went that route, is because I wanted to compete with the other guys who also accepted that same set of circumstances.
Yeah, and to me, so when I talk to guys like you who have reached an elite level or a championship level, I always like to kind of get into what are the intangible factors or the mental mindset factors that help contribute to who you are and what's allowed you to be great. And I think someone like you having that mindset of I want the hardest conditions, right? I want to be tested under the most difficult conditions. That says a lot about you and what you're made of to be the guy you are. Whereas a lot of lifters, they think the opposite. It's like, let me go to the federation that I can get away with the most, where I can get away with a high squat, where, I can lift in the monolift. I don't have to walk out my heavy squats, and I can, squat high and the judges are going to white light it, pull on a whippy, kabuki bar or whatever it is. So to hear that mindset from you out the gate, I think it says a lot about you. And then also just sort of your aspirations, like you're getting into powerlifting and you're looking at these numbers and saying, I want to get to the world level. Like, okay, you recognize it's going to take time, it's going to be a slow process, but you have that vision and that goal of getting to the top, like right out the gate, seemingly. So I'm just kind of, picking up cues of kind of just what goes into your mindset with all that. So, I think,
From I mean, I know a lot of neurological lifters, right? And the way that I'm or maybe it's not even the right word, but for me, I feel like my physical strength is always going to be a reflection of my internal situation, right? Like for me, if I'm walking up to a weight that I really don't want to get under, and there's any instance in my head where I've had hesitation prior, and I'm telling myself like, oh, like you can overcome this, you can do this, like you've done this before, and then there'll be a voice in my head, but there was that one time where you didn't. So it's like, to me, man, it's like I have to be as legitimate to myself as possible, because I can lie to other people, but I really can't lie to myself, because it's like I'm always thinking like, hey man, like what's a good situation? What's a good example? Because something that I've been doing recently in training is I've been externally vocal to myself, right? Where in the past I've had my brother with me and he would kind of be that person for me, where he'd get in my ear and he'd kind of like get my engine going just to get that extra gear. Which unfortunately, like he's had to go home to work. Can you still hear me, John? It kind of glitched for a little bit.
oh, no, I still got you loud and clear.
Okay. So that's something that I've been doing recently. And I feel like I have to be very transparent in all aspects of my life, right? Like there was this situation where, and this might not make sense to like 95% of the people listening, but I had agreed to go to this event out of town that I didn't want to go to anymore. But my wife, Sarita, she was like, hey, man, you gave your word. You have to go. And then I was like, you're right. Like, my word is my value, and my value is my strength, right? If, like, and as a, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're as a man, say you're going to do stuff all the time that you never do, it does something to your heart, because when you go up to do something where your gusto is actually required and you're just full of shit, like you're going to hit that wall and you're just going to crumble. And I believe that's called conviction, you know, like there is a certain conviction required to hold value in these moments. And it's like, I was like, damn, man, like if I don't go, because I don't want to, even though I said I would. I just felt like that was going to trickle down into my conviction when it came to like going to the gym, because it's like I don't have anybody else to push me. Like no one's telling me to go. No one's telling me to push 1% harder every week. So then I was like, I need to go or try to go so that when I need to, my conscience is essentially clear and I can hold true to my belief of myself, right? And like that's the shit that goes in my head, right? It's extremely nuanced and I feel like sometimes it works against me, but it's like that's how like my philosophy is wired, and like that it all connects for me.
Yeah, man. I mean, you're obviously a man of high integrity. And, there's that saying, how you do anything is how you do everything, right? So
Mhm.
when you apply that conviction and integrity to every aspect of your life, it's going to carry over to the way you approach your training, the way you approach your lifting, the way you approach that 1,000-pound squat bar, right? So, I mean, those sorts of things are powerful, right? Those intangible factors, the principles that drive you as a man, like those are factors that are going to allow you to be the athlete that you can ultimately be. And just working in football strength and conditioning for the last 9 years, just that's always something we wanted to impart on our guys, right? Is
Mm.
just not just getting them strong in the weight room, but developing that integrity and just developing, good young men that, and just selling the importance of like, hey, the things that showing up on time, right? Doing things right outside of the weight room is going to carry over to how you perform in training and how you perform on the field, and your teammates can count on you and all those things. So I have a lot of respect for that. Guys, thank you for tuning in and supporting the podcast. I just wanted to take a minute to give a shout out over to my guys at Troponin Supplements. So they're the sponsor of the podcast, and in my opinion, they carry the best supplements on the market, and it's not even close. And they're the one company that I've wanted to align myself with. As a nutrition coach working with NFL football players, other professional athletes, strongman competitors, bodybuilders, powerlifters, fitness enthusiasts, endurance athletes, I have to be very particular about any supplement company I endorse. And with Troponin Supplements, frankly, it was a no-brainer. These are the products I've been using myself for the last few years, before I ever became involved with the company. I know the owner personally, Justin Harris. He is one of the brilliant minds in the bodybuilding industry, and we've talked, and all he has wanted to do is just bring some of the elite top of the line products to the market, and that's what he's done. So these are the products I recommend and endorse to all my athletes, all my clients. I use myself, and I want to pass this along to you guys as well. So I'm going to highlight a couple products here. First and foremost, we've got the ATP. This is a high dose of caffeine paired with a very powerful nootropic. I take this before work. I take this before I podcast. This is going to give you a great boost in mood, in focus, memory enhancement. You're just going to feel like you took the Limitless pill when you use ATP. It's an effervescent tablet. You drop it in your water, it dissolves, tastes great. The next product, Field Rations. This is the premier intra-workout supplement on the market right now. It's a one-stop shop for all your intra-workout needs. It's based in highly branched cyclic dextrin, contains essential amino acids, electrolytes, tastes amazing. I use this within every training session. Then we've got the Suppressor Max. This is awesome for controlling your blood sugar. It's got a high dose of berberine, but then has complementary ingredients that are going to keep the berberine bioavailable and stay in your system longer. This is the best blood sugar product on the market. If you're bulking, if you're eating a ton of food, if you're using a cheat meal, this is a great product for you. And then finally, I love this one. I've always had sleep issues. Hit the Rack. This is one of the best sleep products I've ever tried. I use it about 30 minutes before bed most nights, and this has been the one supplement that has actually helped me fall asleep and stay asleep. And then of course, we got the Troponin T logo bodybuilding jersey and the hat. We've got great apparel on the site. So guys, check out Troponin Supplements. You can find the link in the show notes, in the bio, or you can simply just Google Troponin Supplements. Use code HECK, capital HECK, at checkout for a discount. Check them out, guys. These are some of the best products on the market.
Yeah, I appreciate them.
Okay, so you do your first powerlifting meet, you total just under 2K. Now, I'm assuming your training had changed quite a bit because you're working with Joey, and you're working with a formal coach for the first time in powerlifting. Did you immediately make some significant progress as soon as you jumped on true programming?
I felt like I did. Not because, I mean, so my program is incredibly simple, right? It's literally my frequency is I squat once a week. We've just recently changed my bench frequency from 2 to 3, and I deadlift once a week. So that's 4 training days, 3 rest days. That's it, man. Monday. Well, for the majority that I've been working with Joey, it was Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, with rest days on Wednesday and the weekend. But now it's Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, with Tuesday and the weekend being my rest days. And the biggest change that I got when I started working with Joey was simply having a constructive program. Like that was it, right? I think maybe there's been a few times where we've had to have like technical changes and whatnot, because when it comes to that, I feel like just the way that I process information, and with my background already, I wasn't green. I wasn't like one of those lifters that needed his hand held, and I didn't really need him to, micromanage me, because one, like my effort wasn't in question, and my ability to follow the program was never in question. So the biggest change was just adding structure over a period of time.
Right.
Whereas in the past, I was like doing, I would like change out my program like maybe like every few weeks, depending on what I was watching on YouTube, So I think that's what led to the growth that I experienced being facilitated, was just having some constructive, like a hypertrophy phase, the strength phase, and a peaking phase. Boom. And that's as simple as it gets right there. Is you go through, you have a volume phase, you raise the intensity, you lower the reps, and then when you get closer to competition, like you're doing more competition specific sets, right? Triples, doubles. And it's like Joey doesn't over, and I feel like it's become a really popular notion in powerlifting right now, is well, actually, I think one of the people who has popularized this is probably, I mean, you might not be familiar with her, but have you heard of like Agatha Sitko? Yeah. Like, man, like I've heard that her training is becoming popular now, but it's like, trust me, she is unique. Not everybody can SBD 6 times a week and get away with it.
Right.
You're like, if you're not built like her and you try to do what she does, more often than not, you're gonna have some serious issues in like a few weeks if you try to SBD without the proper fatigue management throughout the week. Like if you don't understand how to adjust like your training as that goes on, like you're gonna run into a slew of problems if you try to do what she does. And
and just for some of my audience who may be in the dark on this, by SBD, he's talking about like a squat, bench, and deadlift day all in one. And
yeah,
he's doing, a super high frequency program. And it does seem like, female lifters tend to be able to get away with the higher frequency. They're smaller, right? And whereas you deal with a guy like you, who's a super advanced, strong, heavyweight male, the frequency is going to be lower because although, your percentages might be relative, right? The toll that an 1,000-pound squat is going to take on a human body and your nervous system is going to be vastly different than what a 300-pound squat is going to take on a smaller individual. So, lower frequency always seems to work best with stronger, big male lifters. And man, this stuff doesn't need to be complicated, right? It's bread and butter. It's simple. It's just good, consistent, tried and true foundational structure. Train your ass off, support it with nutrition, and you're going to progress, right?
I like that, man. I like how you explain to the audience what I'm saying. Like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you're not glorifying. I mean, everyone's here to hear you, but it's my job to help just be a mediator and just make sure that everyone's able to get something out of this. I got a little bit of a mixed audience, right? I've got a lot of powerlifting fans, a bunch of strongman fans, bodybuilding fans, then people from the sports performance world, and then just a lot of just general population people who are into fitness. So But anyway, okay, so you do your first meet, you total just under 2K. What were kind of the jumps that you made year to year to year going past that?
Honestly, John, um, I couldn't tell you why, but I added over 300 pounds in a year.
Well, it's not super surprising to me. I mean, look, you work your ass up. You're clearly made of a lot of great things that are required to be a champion. But you've been blessed with a gift, right? And you've been blessed with a gift of strength. And it's not surprising that you get onto a structured program, you start competing, and then you explode and you just have these crazy adaptations. So okay, so you put on 300 pounds on your total in a year.
Yeah.
So go
I
on.
think, well, now, so at the time, I think I was the youngest person ever to pull 400 kilos in competition. But that's just been recently broken by Nonso out of Great Britain. That guy, he's in a weight class lower. But at the time I was a lot lighter than I am now. I think I was like 340 back then. So that's like 155 kilos,
Yeah.
I believe. Because I think 150 is what, 330?
Yeah. Yeah. 150 is about 330.
Yeah,
160 is
so
352.
so I was a lot lighter. But I mean, like this kid, man, this kid's special. Like he just turned 20 and he's in the 120 weight class and he pulled 400 in competition. So he bumped me down to being the second youngest to ever pull 400. Well, I mean, let me get specific. The second youngest in a drug tested federation, man. People will get upset over that stuff.
Well,
And
with the deadlift, though, I think even the bigger factor, arguably, is the deadlift bar, right? You're pulling on the stiff bar
I pulled out I like
versus the deadlift bar in the USPA or whatever federation they're in. Um, God, it's crazy how dudes are just coming out of the woodwork, getting stronger and stronger by the year and younger and younger.
but I mean but you might understand because like you've actually played D1, like you understand um like I'm from Texas, like I grew up playing against, it just seemed like every team we played in the season, man, have 2 or 3 Division 1 commits, like minimum, man. And it's like,
Yeah, I played high school ball in Florida. I played high school ball in Florida.
and Florida, yeah, Florida, Texas, Florida, the South, maybe California. Like this is like where you see freaks every single week, man. Like 15, 16-year-old grown men essentially who are just I mean, man, like were you 6'7" in high school already?
Man, I came in my freshman year. I was 6'7". I was 180 pounds as a freshman, but I finished my senior year. I was, 6'7", 290. And then went on and played football at University of North Carolina.
Yeah, must you, man. Like you're one of those freaks that we're talking about, bro.
Hey, there's one real freak right now in this conversation. I'd say that's you. Now I'll give myself some props. I'm definitely a unique human myself. I'm 6'7", 330. I played D1 ball. But man, like in my opinion, I'm talking one of the strongest humans to ever live. So you're the freak to me.
I appreciate that, brother. But I mean, like, but we can understand that people are often afflicted by their circumstances, right? Like, and I worked in the oil field for a little bit, and it's like people don't understand that there's so many strong men in the blue collar work field that just don't have the luxury to go to the gym for an hour a day because they're having to work 12 to 16-hour days to provide for their family.
Yeah.
But I promise you, if you could find some of these guys and be like, hey, man, your bills are covered for 5 years, just go to the gym. Like, strength sports would just be crazy. It would be so crazy, man.
Yeah, no, and I see a lot of that in strongman. Like, you go to a strongman show and there'll just be some like random country strong dude who just comes out of nowhere. He's just barely any formal training in his life. And then, you go to the commercial gym. Every gym has that one old dude who's just randomly like crazy strong and never really got into any structured training. But I mean, it's true. There are a lot of strong freaks out there who have maybe been undiscovered, right?
Yeah, man. But it's just like it just goes to show the lack of knowledge and background that some of these people have because they didn't do sports in high school. They didn't even do college sports. They've never like they don't understand the nuances that goes into somebody being genetically gifted to run fast, somebody being genetically gifted to have a certain bone structure, someone being genetically gifted to be able to move weight from point A to point B. I mean, like, it's like, I remember in high school, there were like these three high school powerlifters. I think one of them's name was Rudy Flores. Um, this other guy, I don't remember their names, man, but excuse me, like these guys were lifting like 675 like raw in high school
Yeah.
at the age of 16, 17. But some of these guys, either A, they get burnt out, B, they have kids at an early age where they don't have the financial stability to support and continue like training, or like C, it's just, or well, I guess like B and C are kind of the same thing, right? They just have financial obligations and they get burnt out and they don't really have the time for it.
Yeah, and I saw the same thing in football, like whether it was teammates or when I got into coaching, just there's so many dudes who it's like, man, you could have been a first round draft pick, just incredibly gifted, explosive, twitchy athletes who, for whatever reason, they drop off, whether they failed out of school, they got in trouble, they got into drugs, or they just didn't have the work ethic to keep going and do what they need to do. So I mean, you need to have the talent, the
Yeah,
God-given
man.
ability.
I was having a conversation with one of my buddies. He was he was, I think, like a 1 or 2 year starter for LSU. He played center, and he was telling me about this one transfer. He was a tight end. I think he had played at Georgia, and then he transferred to LSU. But then he told me, he was like, dude, this guy is the freakiest dude I've ever seen. Like, he was like, he probably could have started his freshman year, but he told me some insight. He was like, but he has a lot of like mental health and drug addiction issues.
Yeah.
And then he was like, dude, like this guy, if he cleaned up his act, like he'd be a top 5 pick, like whenever he wants to go. And unfortunately, I think that guy actually ended up getting locked up, I think like maybe a year later, because of these issues.
Right.
And it's just like, man, like people just don't know that the population of people that you see competing now are people, they're not necessarily the most talented. You definitely have to have a degree of talent and like ability to excel at the top level, but it's also like an accumulative effort of like, you got to keep your act clean. You got to keep all your eggs in the basket. You got to be able to be responsible and have the mental fortitude to go through life and continue to do something that's monotonous.
Right.
And it's like some people even have a hard time sticking to one thing for more than a year, man. And it's like
Yeah.
they get bored and fizzle out.
It's true, man. Did you hit a point? I'm sure you did. Or when was the point once you were competing? I know you had aspirations of getting to the world level as soon as you got into it, but when did you realize like, okay, I really can do this. Like I can come for all these world records and I can get to the top. When did that become like a legitimate, realistic, attainable goal?
Excuse me. That's it's not a hard question to answer because I feel like every year that I set a really big goal in front of myself, it's always a different version of myself, right? Because when I first started, so I've been doing this now for about 6 years, and I feel like I've gone through a lot of growth as a man, and that's gonna like be reflective in my training philosophy. But I understood that I had an opportunity to get to this, like, not just be a world champion, but be all time. Probably after my third meet. And this is the meet where this was my first time totaling 2,300. I squatted 903. I think I benched 545, and I deadlifted 880. And it was at this total put me at, I think at the time, 11th best all time. Uh, and this is crazy, man, because I don't consider myself an anti, like, untested person. Maybe earlier in my days, because I was just like, oh, like, I'm so much better than these guys on PEDs. But now that I'm older, I have relationships with some of these guys that are acquaintances, and I just understand for some people they just happen to absorb the doctrine, or the not doctrine, but the word of mouth, right? When you're a young, imprintable, not like what's the word?
Impressionable.
Impressionable young man or person, and you go to, like, some strong guy, you're just gonna eat up whatever they say. And this person, at some point in time, was that young, impressionable person, and they ate up whatever they heard. And that is how the idea that you need PDs to be strong spread. It's because when powerlifting got really popular, it was because of the untested lifting. Those guys were doing crazy things, and they pushed the sport to where it is now. And after a certain time, like, drug tested became a little bit more prominent, you know, and it just kind of became. I mean, and we can get into the new, like, it's just the people leading it and the personality. I feel like those people had a big difference as to why it kind of gravitated more towards, like, USAPL, PAIPF. But
Do you get a lot of accusations and scrutiny, accusations that, oh, there's no way that this guy is actually drug free,
the time, bro,
like narrative?
all the time. But it doesn't really bother me anymore. The only thing that bothers me is when people are like, and I don't know if I want to say this, because if a troll hears this, I'm probably going to see it in a comment. But the only thing that really upsets me is when people are like, you call yourself a believer of Christ, but you want to lie about your natural status. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm like, bro, whoa. Like, slow the hell down. Like, do not bring my faith into this. Um,
To me, it's almost like a compliment. It's like that people just cannot fathom that you are so strong without PEDs. I mean, first of all, even if you were on PEDs, what you've done is just remarkable, and no one else has done it, even on PEDs. But just it's just insecurity. It's people want to just tear you down because of the success that you've had, and they want to poke some hole in you. But I'm glad you've honed out that narrative. I mean, like I said, I would take it as a compliment.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, I do sometimes. It's just the insinuation is I am a cheat in my sport.
and you don't want to have your integrity questioned. I get it.
Like these people don't even know me, man. And I'm telling you, like, if me, like I explained to you, like, a few minutes ago, like, how important my own self integrity is, and how that applies into how I move as a man. It's like these people don't understand, excuse me, like, that kind of mental gymnastics, right? So it's like, honestly, man, like, these people don't know me, and they probably never will. And if they have the opportunity, they'd probably be nice to me, shake my hand, and ask me for a photo,
Yeah, no,
and then
man. These
and then go
people,
back to the comments on their keyboard. So it's just like, man, like, it doesn't really bug me anymore. The only thing that bugs me is when people compare me to untested lifters and they're like, so and so is stronger than you. And I'm like, nah, uh,
Yeah, man. No, I mean, hey, I mean, at this point in your career, you're gonna have those haters, you're gonna have those trolls, you're gonna have those bullshit narratives. It just comes with the territory of greatness, right? And let me ask you this though. Are you convicted to be forever drug free, or is it something you'd ever, you get
so
tested? Well,
so that's a really good question because I got my blood work done and when was it? My son, it was just I think it was like December. So, but I mean, at this point, I was sleeping like 3 hours a night. It was rough, man. Like I probably where you at right now.
yeah,
Uh,
bad life.
yeah, man. It's only been like maybe the last 2 months that I've been able to kind of get back to sleeping more than 6 hours, more than 5 hours. It's been about 2 weeks since I've gotten back to sleeping 8 hours. And I'm tracking all of this, but I need to get my blood work done again because when I got it done in December and I was like 2 to 3 months in with my boy, sleeping 3 hours a night, like diet went out the door, sleep went out the door, everything was out the door.
Right.
And my numbers were not looking that great. I think like my insulin resistance was like red. My testosterone was actually really low. It was like at 230. The doctor that I was seeing, like he actually was like, "Hey man, like you're low enough to get prescribed some stuff that could help you out, like some replacement therapy." And I was like, "I can't. Um, I gotta do this the old fashioned way. Like I get drug tested. These people know where I live. They can literally come at any like this is something else people don't understand. And they're like, oh, like drug free doesn't mean or drug tested isn't drug free,
Drug
right?
free, right? Yeah.
But like I literally had a phone call like 2 weeks ago because I was like a day late of uploading my Q2 whereabouts on the water app. Like these people have my address. If I'm going out of if I'm going out of town for vacation, I have to let them know what hotel I'm staying at. I have to give them like a 60-minute window every day where they can come see me. Uh so it's very detailed. Your schedule is their schedule. They know where you go, where you're at, when you're gonna be there.
Thing.
Like it's not as simple to work around as people think. Like there was this one time where I was at my nephew's birthday party and these people went to my apartment. So I had to speed across town like freaking to get there because if I don't get there in a 30-minute window, they mark me as a fail, whether I'm there to get my blood taken or my pee taken. Like this is not just some hey man, here's $20 under the door type thing. Like, no, these people don't care where you're at. They show up, and if you're not there, then like they're gonna mark you as a fail regardless.
Right. No, that's stressful. That's super stressful. And I mean, of all the people, of course, they're going to put a big target on you because you're the guy at the top. So you're going to get, I'm sure, more scrutiny than anyone from WADA or whatever drug testing organization is
Yep.
doing it.
And I've been reading a bunch of Reddit threads where a lot of people will like anonymously be like, oh well, my friend competes in the IPF and I know my friend uses, so I can only imagine what everybody else does. But my response to that is if your friend is using, but he's not even good enough to get drug tested, then what does it matter? Right? Bro, relax. But oh yeah, so anyways, to answer your question, so I'm 26 right now, I'll be 27 in June. After I'm done competing, I'm gonna essentially like my priority is gonna shift like 180 to try to get my health right. Right. I think, and my doctor told me, he was like, hey man, like, you're not like in any grave danger, but if your numbers stay the same for like another 5 years or another 5 to 10 years, like then we could kind of be in like a bad spot.
Right.
So he was like, but like I know I've been because he was a thrower, and so he understands like what it means to be an athlete. So he was like, look, man, but I understand, like there's like if you can just get your fundamentals fixed out, like I'm sure you're gonna like be in a better spot. So that's one thing. That's one of the things at the top of my priority list is I really want to get my blood work taken again, just so I can see if it's improved any from just sleeping a little better, eating a little better. Because what prompted me to get my blood work done was an acquaintance of mine mysteriously passed away, and he was like 2 years older than me. So he just like he was a French lifter, and his family kept his passing very private. So the public, like I don't know exactly what happened, but a lot of the people that knew him from France messaged me, and they kind of just told me what they thought was going on. They were like, well, like his diet wasn't all that good. Like we heard that he was starting to feel really ill from just how big he was, but he wasn't even really that big of a guy. So that kind of is what prompted me to start being a lot more literal with my health, right? So to answer your question, John, like I want to try to get my health right naturally. And if I'm like 7 or 10 years from this point and I've lost like 100 pounds and my numbers still aren't optimal, then, at that point, I'll probably already be done competing. And, like maybe we could be talking about some replacement therapy, some HRT and stuff like that. But it's a very heavy topic for me because it's what I believe I represent, right? I feel like I represent for some of the younger guys out there, like you don't need to hop on stuff at the age of 19, 20 to be great. Like how much are you going to hate yourself if you could know how good you could be in 5 years if you just did it the right way? So I mean, it's just one of those things where if it's going to help out my health when I need it to, then I'm going to do what I need to do to make sure that I'm long enough to support my son, my lady, my future kids. So that probably be the only reason that I would go down that route, And it's like, and even then, like HRT and TRT and all that stuff, that's not like trend or any of the hardcore stuff, right? Like that's another conversation. So I think that's as far as I would go, man. I don't think I would ever go into the hardcore path. Um, just because like I've just heard so many horror stories, man. Like there's another prominent powerlifter. He's retired now, but I heard stories that he had to get dialysis a few times during the year just because he was pushing himself so hard that he was starting to get organ failure. And he was like maybe 34, 35.
Yeah, man. That
That
stuff
scared me,
happened.
man. That I was like, that just I was like, you know what? That's another reason why I don't ever want to consider this stuff. It's because like my grandma passed away in 2017, and I remember her going to dialysis.
Yeah.
And my mom would tell me stories of when my grandma would share when one of the ladies that would sit with her at dialysis stopped going, and it was because she passed away. And obviously, someone at the later stages of their life is a little different than someone abusing stuff that's putting them in that situation. But for me, it's just like dialysis is like I don't ever want to be there.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. I respect it wholeheartedly. And, there's one part of me that's kind of like, God, just imagine what he might be capable of if he did. But then, the reality is, if you were to jump on stuff 5 years from now and continued competing, you would no longer really be looked at through the lens of your accomplishments as a natural might kind of be pushed to the back seat, because then from that point on, you're regarded as an enhanced lifter, right?
Yeah.
And it could, in a way, kind of, I don't want to use the word tarnish, but you kind of tarnish what you did as a natural lifter. And I think it's so cool that you're serving as just a role model to, to young kids, and just showing them like, hey, you can achieve incredible things through the natural route. And you're a father, you're a husband, and obviously you're a very big man. So I mean, these health concerns are real. They're very real. So man, have nothing but respect for what you're doing. But just moving forward here, I want to just, I don't want to keep you too long. I know you've got a bedtime to make. I got a couple topics I just want to hit on here.
Yeah.
First of all, what are your best numbers to date? Your best total, your best squat, best bench, and deadlift.
All right. So we'll throw in some gym numbers as well.
Yeah, include them all.
All right. So my best total is 2,541 pounds. My best squat was or is 1,053. My best bench in competition is 600. My best bench in training is 617. And then my best deadlift in competition is 903. But I've pulled 939 in training.
Yeah, it's rare to see a guy who is as strong of a squatter also have a great deadlift. I mean, the 1,000+ pound squat and a 900+ pound deadlift is crazy, because usually, if you're built to be a great squatter,
Mhm.
you're not built to be a very good deadlifter, right? You're bigger through the midsection, smaller hands, smaller limbs. So I think it's incredible that you've managed to get the deadlift to where it's at on a stiff bar and just under the conditions you do. And man, when you squat, your depth is unquestionable. I mean, just seeing you hit the hole and just crush depth with 1,000+ pounds is crazy. And you tend to hit depth like with some speed and some velocity, and really get a explosive rebound out of the bottom. I mean, your squat does kind of remind me of Ray Williams, just because he kind of goes slow, fast bounce out of there. Although I'd say you tend to squat lower, I think.
Yeah. I mean, but the reason for that is we have so much weight on the bar. And I remember, John, there was I've always had a lot of respect for Ray, like always, even when he was rehabbing and coming back from his injury and everybody kept kicking him while he was down. I always made an argument of like, nah, man, like Ray's gonna come back. Like Ray, he got one more hoorah on him. Like that man he's a dog, man. He's such a hard worker. And um I know I haven't had like the privilege of having a very intimate like one-on-one conversation with him, but just from what I've gathered around his legend,
Yeah.
like when he was at his strongest, man, like he was going to school for like his doctorates. He was a D-line coach and he had to commute from the
Mhm.
school he was going to for class to the school he was coaching at to the gym he was training at, then back home. And like he was doing all this while he was doing what he did. And I'm like, man, there might not ever be another person who could do that. Because even though I've outclassed him in the total, like my life is specifically, well, maybe not right now because I have my boy and now everything feels like it's around him. But before he was born, my life was like structured to be like as strong as I could be.
Right.
And it's like that right there is two separate things. Like being a man, doing what he did with what he had on his plate, and then you have someone like me who is like trying to be as professional as possible, like sleep, food, training schedule, and try to optimize all that. Like, yeah, like obviously, like one over the other, if their talent is equivalent, is going to have greater progression, right?
Do you, at this point in your life, are you a professional powerlifter? Are you making a living off, your sponsorships and, maybe some coaching income, or are you still working a job?
No, I would say that I could be classified as a professional for probably like the last 3 years
Yeah.
out of the 5 or 6, because um the first 2 years, man, like I was still working full time. I remember like there was a summer where me and Pablo went to go work in pipeline, and I remembered, man, we'd have to wake up at 5, be at the yard by 6. We'd be out there from 7 to 5 p.m. It was an hour drive back to the gym. So from 6 to 8, that was all we had to train. And then we had from 8 to 9 to eat dinner and get ready for bed. And boom, man, had to be up the next morning. So
Yeah. So, I mean, you've got a taste of that Ray Williams life, just that blue collar work ethic, grinding through a manual labor job, finding time to train late at night, home just in time to go to bed and wake up and do it all again. So, a lot of respect to that for
yeah, man,
sure.
it's and my brothers, man, they're my family. We're a pipeline family. So
Yeah.
every time we get together for family gatherings, man, like that's like 50% of what they talk about, because it's just like they're like project manager, equipment manager, so like they're always getting phone calls on holidays like, hey man, like we got to get this and that. And it's like I've gotten the opportunity just hear some of their meetings, and these guys are throwing like, man, the pipeline business is crazy, man. The oil field in Texas, they'll be like, oh yeah, we have like a $50 million budget for like this, and I'm like, what the fuck, what? And they're like, oh yeah, man, we made like this much revenue and this much, and I'm like, you know, because
Yeah,
they're
there's
also,
money in that Texas oil.
yeah, man, they're very good at what they do. You know, they've had to work hard for their success, and it's just I'd like to think that some of my characteristics was sharpened by theirs. You
Yeah,
know, so
absolutely they were. Absolutely they were. And it's just cool to hear some of that upbringing and just that blue collar work ethic in you. I've got a lot of respect for that. Okay, so let me ask you this. When was your first 1,000-pound squat, whether it was the gym or training? When was the first time you
this
put
was
a
the
thousand on
gym.
your back and
This
went down
was
to that?
this happened, I think, in October of 2022. I remember distinctly because in February of 2022, I tried 1,000 and I failed because I was sick that day, but I still tried it anyways. And then I went into nationals in 2022, and I ended up smoking 992. So just 5 kilos under 1,003. And then a month after, I got hurt. I strained my piriformis, and I slipped a few discs in training. And then I went into Worlds in South Africa that year, and I tore my piriformis, and that was like a whole different fit. That was a whole. They just like went from bad to worse. And then from July until October, I had to rebuild my squat and rehab, essentially from like a plate on the bar to like 2 plates the next week to like 2 plates 25 the week after. And I remember just being in excruciating pain with 10% of my squat max while I was rehabbing. And then as I was getting healthier, like I just felt like my base. It was just like that rehab had done me some good because I just felt like it gave me a better sense of mind muscle control because I
Right.
had to tempo everything. And I remember that I started getting back into the 900s, and then I was just like kept going. I think like a few like 10 kilos every week, and then I think the week before I hit 1,003, I think I hit like 970, and then my brother was like, "Dude, we got to load 1,000, man." And I remember we went into that gym and the gym that day, and it was just that was a pretty cool moment. Was being able to hit my first 1,000 that day.
How did you approach that bar, man? Were you approaching it with, hell yeah, I got this, or was there some fear? Like, what was your mindset approaching that bar?
Shoot, man. I don't. It's hard because that was that was about 2.5 years ago. I just had like this feeling of desperation. Like I wanted to hit this lift as bad as like I just wanted to breathe.
Yeah,
So in my mind, there was no other option. It was simply do. Because I had just taken so much time to like get healthy again that it was just it was a very long process to get back to that.
yeah,
Um, and even then, man, I still have like some chronic piriformis syndrome from that injury, and that was like 3 years ago. Um, but I always get a little jittery when I hit a lift like that. Um, excuse me. It's just so weird because there was a point in time where I felt like I could just hit whatever I wanted in the gym, and that's not really how I feel now. Um, like I don't really have that same approach. My approach now is like a lot more. It was more a lot more collected, like now with the introduction of like external self-talk, I'm like trying to get my own engine going, but man, that day was just, it just felt like that day was ordained, man. It was just
yeah,
a lot of the things I've done, it just feels like God wrote it for me. Like that's the best
yeah.
way I could explain it.
Hell yeah, man. I mean, honestly, you got me fired up just hearing that. Um, what's been maybe your favorite or most meaningful moment as a lifter so far? Whether it was winning worlds or your biggest squat in competition. Is there a lift or a moment in your lifting career that is just at the top for you?
Mm, that's a hard question because my heart wants to say my most memorable powerlifting related moments are my brother's PRs. Like to
Really?
me, the most excited I have ever been at a competition was when I was handling my brother when he hit his first 800-pound squat.
Yeah,
Like I've never the way I behaved that day, John, it was let's just say at the time Saria she had to take me outside and tell me to calm down because all I remember is like I just went bananas. There was a chair in front of me, and I just remember I grabbed it and I slammed it down, and I was just going like completely ape shit, and I was just like beating my chest and like just that emotion of seeing my brother grind that squat. None of my lifts have ever come to that sense of like euphoria, but for
well, man, real
myself,
quick before we get off that, to
yeah.
me, it sounds like you might have a calling when you're done competing. You might have a calling as being a coach, man. Just hearing some of the role model in you, hearing the just excitement you get from another man's accomplishment. Now, granted, it's your brother, but
Mhm.
man, it sounds like you have the makings of being a great coach.
I mean, I try to. That's funny because I was talking to Saria about this like 2 days ago. She was like, "Why do you always feel like you're in a position where you can like speak on in other people's lives. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, yeah, like you always feel like you can help people or fix people. And I'm like, well, I mean, like I've been through stuff.
Yeah.
And if I have an opportunity to make an impact on somebody else's life, I'm gonna, put my 2 cents in. And she's like, but some people don't like that, right? And I was like, I mean, yeah, and those people make it known pretty quick that they don't want to hear any criticism. But
Did this happen to come after maybe you criticized her a little bit or tried to
uh,
coach her a little bit?
hey man, we gotta be careful now. Our ladies might be listening.
Yeah, exactly.
I like abort, abort. No, but I mean, it's because I've always like not as much now, but maybe a few years ago, I was very keen on essentially kind of speaking into some of the younger guys' lives at the gym
Mhm.
because at TSS they support the UTSA powerlifting team. So for anybody who knows TSS, like they kind of think of it as like a college gym. But I mean, it's a great training facility. It's got everything you need. It has a pretty good selection of strongman equipment too. But they cater to the UTSA kids. But I mean, that didn't really bother me at this point in time that I'm talking about. Um, and I would get very attached to some of these younger guys, where like I'd kind of like be their friend. I would call them outside of the gym, like invite them to hang out and just pour life into them. And it just kind of would get to the point where like whatever these kids were going on through their personal life, it started to affect me negatively. So I kind of decided to take a step back from that just because it's like some of these kids kind of take you for granted.
Yeah.
Um, Especially because like I can't really do things like half. I mean, Saria would disagree, but I try not to do things half-assed, especially when it comes to investing into a young man's life, right?
Right.
Especially someone that I can relate to and I see that they have a lot of potential. But you know, so it's like I would love nothing more, man. If and that kind of is why like and you like you said you saw that, right? And like there's been a few times where this like a young guy will come up to me at the gym and they're like, "Hey man, like I watch all your stuff, like like I'm gonna take a picture," and then I do my best to ask them like how they're doing, like what their name is, if they're going to school, like what are their goals, and that'll turn into a 40-minute conversation and like 10 missed calls because I'm not home when I said
Yeah.
I was supposed to. Um, so I mean, it's just if somebody comes up to me and they have legitimate questions, I'm an open book. I don't mind taking time out of my day to share a little bit of wisdom, because it's like that's the kind of old timer I want to be. I want to be that old timer who I don't want to gatekeep. I don't want to dissuade the next generation from trying to do better than me. I want to be able to pass on knowledge, like, and just get to enjoy it, because not everyone's at the top forever, you
Right.
know? So it's like, I mean, it's just the natural cycle of life, man.
Absolutely. Well, I'd be curious to see just as the years go by when your competing days are behind you, if you end up making that transition. I think you'd be a great coach and make an incredible impact in a lot of lives. And I know you already are. So I'm gonna wrap things up with just last question. What are your goals moving forward? Like what do you think is possible for you, total wise, squat wise, whatever?
So I haven't been very public about this, but I am going into Worlds this year with the full intent of breaking my total world record. So the record right now is 11:52 and a half, right? And I'm aiming for essentially like 11:60, 11:70. Um, I
Do you know
just want
off the top of your head what that is in pounds?
to let me. Let me use my
Without the
handy dandy
calculator,
smartphone for that real quick.
the multiply by 2.2.
Mm-hmm. So that's 2,557 pounds. It's not a
Okay.
big PR. That's not like a crate. It's just I just want to outdo what I did in 2023
Hell yeah.
because I am a lot more. I'm a lot stronger than I was then. I'm a lot more physically mature. It's just I just haven't been able to put it together. And the thing with Sheffield is it kind of convinces people to hold back as much as they can at international competitions because the way that Sheffield is wired to work is the person who adds the largest percentile to the world record wins, right? And I feel like that over time has honestly done a disservice to myself because when I first started powerlifting, I wanted to PR every single meet.
Right.
The purpose and joy that I had for the sport that I was participating in had one goal in mind. It was to win and be better than my last time. But with the introduction of Sheffield, they kind of shifted things to holding back at Worlds, holding back at Nationals, and trying to save it for Sheffield. But I mean, like if we're looking at this from a statistics perspective, it's we're talking about a 9 lift competition with the sum of 3 lifts being your end goal, right? If you only give yourself one competition with those numbers to try to do better, you're statistically putting yourself at bad odds to actually do that over time,
Right.
right? So, and plus, I just feel like for where I'm at in my career right now, like I'm about to essentially like kind of hit my prime by like late 20s, early 30s. So it's like I need to strike this iron while it's hot. And I just want to get back to the roots of what made powerlifting so fun to me. And
Yes.
that was trying to chase a PR like every single competition,
Yeah.
you know? And it's like, I know if I'm successful in these ventures, it's going to decrease my chances of winning Sheffield. But honestly, like just the way that it's wired, the way that it's written, it's not really built for the previous champion to win the following year. Unless you're Agata Sitko, and those rules just don't apply to you. Um, but I just want to do what's true to myself. Like, why did I start powerlifting? Why did I fall in love with strength sports? What is my philosophy? And you know what, man? Like my goals now is it's not really so much about adding another Sheffield trophy, but it's about like being able to walk out when I'm done and saying, you know what, like I gave it my best every single time I stepped out there on that platform. And I'm either representing my country or I'm representing my family. So it's like, I don't want to go to a meet because it's like if you're training for a competition, but you're not really aiming to beat your best, it trickles down into your sessions and it's almost like poison. So I'm just going to do my best to like not even deal with that. And I just want to
Yeah.
like straight like hit every session like it's my last.
Hell yeah, man. Well, the world will be watching. I will be watching. I'm cheering hard for you, man. And I'm excited for you, but also just for strength sports to see like what is possible. And you've redefined, what like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, nobody would have ever thought that somebody would be totaling what you've totaled raw, drug-free, IPF conditions. So I mean, you've set new standards in the sport, and I know you're only going to continue to do so. So I'll wrap this up here, man. But I was a fan of you before, but now just sitting here and talking with you, I'm an even bigger fan. I
I
think
appreciate that,
you
brother.
got the makings of a great man, a great champion, and I'm fired up for you, and I'm excited to see what you do moving forward. So, Jesus, man, appreciate you coming on the show. Where can people find you at?
I mean, they can find me on my YouTube channel. All of my, well, actually, no, I think you can either just look up my name, Jesus Olivares, or where I'm a lot more known as is just mega.gojira in pretty much all of my socials have the same username.
Yeah. It's an iconic one at this point, man. So, all right, guys. Well, we're going to go ahead and close this out here. So, Jesus, thank you so much for coming on, man. We'll be watching and cheering for you guys. Go follow him on Instagram. Check him out on YouTube. And stay tuned for more episodes dropping every week. And we'll catch you guys next time.